All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to This Week in Base Hit. And today, I finally got rid of Clone. I've been trying so hard. So today we have a very special guest. I've known him for close to 2 decades now. He has been a community manager of this game for most of that time. You know him as Makila. Makila, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining, man. Good to see you again. We
good to see you.
We need to catch up more like this, but yeah, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thanks for having me.
I
love to talk the game.
Yeah. So we could talk about a lot of things, but we're in a few leagues together, and actually, before we even get started about that, I do have to congratulate the Cincinnati Reds in remake, because I got to the World Series after finally breaking through Slick's monopoly of that league for the last 5 years, and beat CBT in the conference. And I was so confident I was going to win, and then I got swept in very embarrassing fashion. So, but remake is back. So it was a fun ride.
So who's the owner of the Reds?
It is Jason Justin. Oh gosh, I forget his name every time. 1 second, because I should give him his.
I know a handful of the franchise owners, but I don't recall any who owns the Reds off the top.
Yeah, well, and this guy has been showing up a lot. James Justin.
Okay, congratulations, yeah.
James Justin. I've actually never had any direct interactions with him, but he has 6 teams. He's in like Negro League Tribute, Pacific Coast League, MLB straight 8s, which I keep seeing pop up on my radar too.
Yeah, Negro League. I mean, that's a cool old school league.
That's an OG league.
It is, and obviously with a really awesome theme and purpose to honor that. And I guess on a quick side tangent, the stats getting wrapped into MLB statistics historically is pretty awesome to see that get done. And the project that they worked through on that seems pretty awesome. They spent some years doing some research to try to actually, cobble together, put together the legit stats, which I imagine was a pretty hard obstacle. I read some articles about it, and it was interesting.
Yeah, I did too. I didn't realize like just how much work it was going to have to be, because they were in some cases not keeping some stats, some cases keeping stats. Some of the official scoring was different, so they had to go through like every one of those games or what they could of it. They were going through actual books.
Yeah,
scoring books.
It was pretty incredible. Yeah, to your point, the difference, the discrepancies. You'd see this record here, you see this record here, or you might have had certain teams that they can't, like in a singular game, this team had records and this team didn't. And yeah, what do you do about that? So
well,
that was pretty cool.
And this is something that's come up on this show quite a bit. And I think it's a positive, even though I realize why it's frustrating sometimes, is when you look at records across the game over 20 years, it's hard to make them universal, because we have different the game has changed, certainly, and there's been different time periods where the game has worked differently. There's different eras in the game. There's league formats that kind of break the game a little bit. But I think in total, it's just like we should brag about the fact that like we've simmed more games than any baseball game in the computerized era, unless somebody can prove me wrong. And this is just part of that evolution.
Is there a off the hand quick number at how many total sims we have simmed now at this point?
Over 50 million.
Is it over 50 now? Okay. I know you guys touched on games recently. It was last week or the week before, you talked about users who had simmed the most games, but
50 million.
So if you had mentioned that, I overlooked that. Wow.
Number. That is an absurd number. And actually, we're hoping now to get more of those milestones, because we're coming up on a bunch of crazy milestones of like total users to play, and then even we just had our, 1,000th perfect game that happened recently. We want to be able to celebrate all those things, because for a game with such longevity, like that's cool to look at.
And that's, I think it's been touched on, private conversation, public conversation too, of one of the one of the strongest assets right now that BaseHit has too is these decades of stats that are still saved. You know, all the database that contains so much information, and it's most of it all has been retained.
Yep.
You know, some stuff has been lost or was not stored, even from the get-go, but there's so much information still, history that is there. And I would be curious, and it would have to probably be a question for someone that was running it back then, but the 50 million, I'll bet that doesn't even include the early versions of the game before the version 4 one, which is what we all kind of got to know. But you know, there was a year or so too of Sims
That's right.
prior to that I bet we have no concept of anymore.
Yeah, I forget the first sim that we have logged. It's like from 2002, I think. And the game, like in some test beta version, was out in late 2000, and then 2001 they started taking some users. We don't have records from those games.
Yeah, so the number's even slightly higher, you know, if
Yeah.
you really think about it, which is incredible. I mean, I was in 2003 when I joined, I believe. Yeah, that sounds right. I mean,
Yeah.
so and they had been, I was, you know, there have been a couple thousand users on the site already when I signed up.
Yeah, I was in 2004. It's crazy, man, the longevity of the game.
I
Um,
know people have kids that are growing and graduating.
Actually, yeah, that was one of the things I was going to say to you is, you know, Clone right now, the reason he's not here is he's taking a trip to Europe with his son, as a graduation gift for high school. But when I first met Clone in person, like his wife just found out she was pregnant with this child. That's how long I've known him. I remember first seeing your daughter screaming death metal when she was like 6 or whatever, or 5.
Yeah, that video's in my folks' backyard.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
And now to see
Dude, she's in her second year in college.
yeah, they're all grown up and they still love their parents. So like you are both great dads. And so like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to love about that. That's cool.
It is incredible. You've seen, it's those of us that, you know, connected in those early days. We've watched our families and our individuals and everybody just grow and age. And we've lost family members, we've added family members, and you know, we've seen career arcs, and some can go 180s from where they were a decade ago, and it's pretty awesome.
I have like 10 or 11 years of Christmas cards of yours with pictures of your family on it, so you can see the difference. Is pretty cool.
It's pretty cool, yeah. You know, and here we still are, and there's still this game that intertwines it all, right? You know, so yeah, you got this awesome history. So Remake is one of those leagues that's definitely got a lot of history. I mean, Remake goes back to, geez, I think when I joined, I think if I recall right, it was just Remake and then AAA started. I know AA certainly didn't exist. And I also remember another one I remember really early was MLB Classic. Yeah, I remember that being a big league when I joined that was pretty well established. And obviously, you know, things have spawned into different paths, and we've got all these cool different leagues now. And I'm in, so not recently, when was it? I don't know. We started an 18 league, which was my first one. I've had some mixed thoughts on the 18 league stuff. It's cool to see we're running a shorter schedule in the 1-8 league we're in. And, you know, it's cool to be able to burn through them fast like that. The one observation I've really noticed in the 8-person league with a condensed season is, holy crap, the statistical anomalies of the smaller sample size are all over the place.
Yeah.
I have some players that'll be a 1200 OPS, and then they turn around and drop a 700 OPS season, and then back to a 1200. And it's like, how am I supposed to deal with this in a 50-game season?
Yeah, it does feel chaotic. I like the 8 teams. I think that it's fun for the community aspect because you have a denser community to discuss. But the shortened season screws me up every time. I can't tell you how many times I've missed the first game of the postseason or something because it's happening in July. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Hey, also, because I heard you mention it before a little bit, but yeah, congrats on the Carl title. That's a league where we overlap, and yeah, I obviously and talk to you in person about it. So,
dude, and that one means a lot to me because like there was a couple times where where like Ballmer's reached out to me. He's like, hey, are you still playing? Because like I wasn't doing good. And I was like, yes, man, I swear I'm trying to. And I had like the most failed rebuild I've ever had in Carl, where I rebuilt this team and it just was so, I could talk about it for an hour, but it was so janky that I had to break it apart and do it again. And finally got my team together. And so it was very vindicating to have a good win.
It is a sneaky good league. I
It's
actually
all
too,
good
if
owners.
you go look at the owner list, in my opinion, it's can be put up there with any league, especially any 2014 league out there. And we obviously just switched back to classic.
Yep.
You know, we did the free agency era try.
Yep.
Personally, we all play under the same rules, but kind of glad to see the switch back, at least the warm, fuzzy familiarity. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's probably good to be pushed out of your comfort zone at times too. But
that was going to be one of the things I was going to ask you about, because I think for like some of us old guys that have been playing for all these years, I find trouble playing in some of these leagues that are different, but I know it's good for the game. And I
exactly.
know people love it, but it's a little bit tough because players don't act like I think they should and how I've seen them act for 17 years. So like getting pushed out of the comfort zone is it's tough, but it's like I also am competitive and I don't do as well.
Well, and you're more competitive than I am, and there are other owners that are extremely competitive on the site, and that's phenomenal and it's awesome. I'm not trying to speak negative to it at all. I will admit when I was younger, I would have been more competitive. So an example, Earth Baseball, which is my longest league, it's the one I first joined in 2003, 2004.
Yeah.
And I think I know it's nothing but long time, but I think I'm probably the longest tenured owner with that single team of any team. And I would put it up against, I think, any user. I mean, I've owned that team for 20 plus consecutive years, real life years. So I dominated the league for a very long period of time. It went through some activity periods where it was lower for sure. We keep the rules pretty basic, so it's letter grades. We stayed with letters.
That's cool.
I don't agree. I mean, it's cool for me. I can't still do it. I suck in that league now. I have gone from an owner that I think might have had some of the most titles in it, and I can't freaking win in it anymore. And part of it is because I'm not as competitive. I haven't spent the time to deep dive and pay a lot of attention, and that's on me. But on the surface, but to your point, it's good for the new, and I'm fully aware of it. That's why I'm just like, I'm not even going to try to rock the boat. We're just going to keep trying to play with letter scouting, and we're going to see what happens, and hopefully I can adjust to it. I just have been really slow to it.
I'm in 2 leagues that are letter grades, and I'm there just because I want to try to. I want to be in every different league. I feel like I should be, but honestly, dude, when I'm on the draft list, I swear to God, still to this day, I'm like, okay, A plus 9, let's say 100, A, let's say 95, and I'm using my fingers to this day.
I know. I'm having every time to be like, okay, what does this mean? And stop for a minute, you know?
And the letters like look different than the numbers, because when I'm like looking at like a B minus, I'm like, that's pretty good. And then all of a sudden you see the number, it's like a 68, and you're like,
no, it's not good.
It's not good. It's not like high school grades.
One of the other cool kind of flavors right now that I'm annoyed with it because it's screwed me the last 2 seasons in the Dirty Dozens, which is another longtime league. We switched a few seasons ago where we're split into 12-team conferences.
Oh.
And so we're just 2 conferences of 12. And I've been the number 5 team the last 2 seasons in a conference. And if we were still in divisions, I would have made the playoffs
every year,
both of the years. And so it's been a little kick in the teeth.
The Dirty Dozens has gone through a lot of different changes over the years. That was like a league Tino started back in the day, but to keep it alive, like there's been a bunch of rule changes there, right?
There's been some, but not a whole lot of rule changes. You know, we recently Clone wanted to try out the gold draft.
Oh yeah,
concept.
that happened.
That was the league we gave it a run in. We've ended it for now because some flaws that were
No, I'm glad Slick broke it, because like I think that was the point, is to figure out, does this work, and is there a hole in it? And he found the hole pretty quick.
Yeah. I might have mentioned there was going to be a hole there, and was kind of annoyed that we needed to try it to see what happened. So I was tempted to be the person to try to break it, but then my team was good, so I didn't want to try to manipulate my win total because my team is good.
Yeah, honestly, what I thought was going to happen is I didn't think anybody would ever be brazen enough to do what Slick did, if I'm being honest, because you actually have to write.
No, what I told individuals, clone, was I did not think that his goal, sadly, of having to move players up out of the low minors and not being able, he thought, okay, someone might do it one season.
Yeah.
And they'll bring players up after they sit on their win total. They'll bring players up, and they'll then have those players active, though. Now they can't send them back down. And I said I didn't think that was going to be the goal, or that was going to be the accomplishment. I thought, and I knew you can manipulate other ways. And sadly, from years of the administrative side of it, decades of the administrative side of it, I always think of how it can be abused first. That's kind of where my thought goes the first time, is, okay, how can you take advantage of this? And right away, I was like, you can take advantage of this. And for those that don't know, what we're talking about is, I believe it comes from hockey. I don't remember which league it is. It's not NHL, but it's one of the lower level, or maybe the women's league that they have is where it came from. But it's the concept of, once you get eliminated from the playoffs, you then start a clock of your wins after you get eliminated towards the end of the season. And the team that ends up with the most wins after they've been eliminated receives the number one pick.
Yep.
So in theory, it can help with tanking.
Yep.
It needs some rules around it, I should say.
Well, and that's ultimately the conversation, is like what Clone is really committed to admirably, is figuring out a way to make tanking, get rid of tanking out of the game. And I think it's going to be that constant thing of, like, kind of like when, you have hackers and then coders, and they're constantly one-upping each other, good guy versus bad guy, whatever. And and we're going to keep finding ways to get better at it, because I think we'd all agree that that model of trying to win every sim benefits all owners. And putting, and one other thing is, like, finding a way in the game where you can still be competitive annually without eventually having to get a 1 through 3 pick on your team all the time, which is a genuine problem.
Well, and yeah, I don't recall who mentioned it recently on one of the previous podcasts, is trying to take advantage of those inefficiencies in leagues of where people aren't. It's the same type of idea, if everyone's chasing this, well, in theory, then there should be value over here on this other side, and I should be able to go chase that. And that should still work as a way to win.
Yeah.
And that's important. And obviously, it's something a lot of us have spent time trying to figure out. The one thing I kind of try to, I guess I have a sympathetic spot for, is for a win to occur, there has to be a loss, though. So do you want a league where it's every team's 80-80? Where you have just every team's a 500 team? Because we all love the 100-win teams.
Yep.
We all want them. We want them in the leagues. Even I think it's good to have those dominant teams. They're good for the league in a lot of ways, but that also means other teams are having to lose for those wins to occur. It's just, let's not try to have those losses.
Let's just not make them artificial wins and losses.
Exactly. That's 100% what it is, I think. And it's getting out of that mindset.
All right, so we're at our 15 minutes, but I do want to ask you one more question before I let you go. You have been a community manager for a long time, and you've put out plenty of fires, you've answered plenty of questions. I'm curious what, like, over that time, your biggest learning has been about the community, or about the community's interaction with the game.
That's a good question. My initial reaction to, one of the biggest things I've learned, and this is from I guess a role aspect of what I was asked to do initially. I mean, you've known me a long time, and I know I've had a reputation in the past of kind of heavy-handedness. That doesn't always work the best when trying to manage a community, obviously. And I think that that was something that I have learned or mellowed or changed. I mean, I still don't mind dropping the hammer when it needs to be. And I've told, Clone now, and having Clone involved and working with him, of like, I don't mind playing the bad guy role. I mean, I'll do it. I'll be that. It's not at all. It's just not always effective. I learned initially it's a lot easier when you have someone that you want to keep your eyes on, to not necessarily ban them, because then you have to find out who their new user account is and things like that. If you leave them where you can follow and see on the surface where they are, it just becomes easier for me. And I guess I probably just disclosed something publicly, but it's not secret.
Yeah.
And then, in regards to the community, so the other part of your question, the community in the game and the interaction is, we've harped on this so much too, but the community is the game. And I don't know whether there's pros and cons to that, I guess. And I don't know if it's good, if it's bad. I wish that we know there are users that never find their way into the community. And I think we all kind of wish they did. It's whether, and I don't mean, and what I mean when I say the community, I mean wherever it is. I know we got a lot of users that are on Discord from a community aspect. Now we got a lot of users that are still on the forums. We have some that will never kind of cross paths, and that's fine. But that interaction is what makes this special. I know that not necessarily that isn't how you, I know that's not how you grow the game with new users. I get that. That maybe it's more of a retaining thing, because I think that's a hook, is that interaction with others. But that's, you gotta have the community aspect of this. It's what makes it different. I can go pop in I guess I just dated myself. You don't put a CD in a computer anymore. But I can go pop in a disc and I can go play Baseball Mogul by myself. I can go play Out of the Park Baseball by myself. But I like interacting with people, and we have something different here. I've also, we mentioned it a little bit ago, and I know we're past the time. It's really interesting watching people grow as well, from my aspect of, to your point, watching the community. Okay, I'll mention someone right off the top of my head, and I'll mention CK. Clayton Kershaw. He joined the community in the game when he was a kid.
I think
he and I had
issues
in regards to he's open with about cheating and running multiple accounts. I shouldn't say cheating. That's not fair, because I wasn't so much cheating as in like cheating within a league, but running multiple accounts, things like that. I let him stay around, basically, and he's actually thanked me in recent years for not running him off from the game. But he and I don't agree about everything, just like most people don't to this day. But I can tell you, he's a very different person than he was years ago.
No doubt.
And I actually watched that occur. There are other users who I really just don't even want to talk about or mention their name, because I wish they would just leave for good, who I watched when they were a kid, who cheated, and they're still the same person. And that's disappointing. Like, grow up, frankly. And so it's really interesting watching the people grow from kind of an outside perspective as well. And that's been cool to do. And I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think about it all the time. It's like you remember there was a time where I almost got banned permanently from the game because I was so lawless on the forums. I was like making up songs and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and I was drinking a lot and drunk posting. And to think about like me as this like CSFBL outlaw and now the owner of BaseHit is a funny transition over time, because I mean there is a time where it's
So there was that period, and I understood Brian's concerns.
Oh yeah, for sure.
No, and what it was, one of the big things is I remember talking with him about it, and some of the other guys, and it was his concern was, I can't have these threads where we were going off the deep end. He's like, I can't have those showing up as the top search of everything.
Yeah,
that does not reflect well. Like, yeah. I get that, man. Actually, when you frame it like that, I'm adult enough to understand. Let me do what I can from being a member of the problem. Let me see what I can do to help that. And there was also one period where he wanted to basically, we discussed, do we need to put a lock essentially on certain forums and make them password protected where new users and public searches wouldn't find them. I pushed back on that personally because I thought it defeated a lot of the purpose. But yeah, those conversations had to have, to your point, because there was some stuff that was just probably, it wasn't appropriate.
It wasn't appropriate, but it did build a great community. We did have a lot of fun and, got a lot of real life friends out of it, but it wasn't for public consumption. It was truly a locker room. And usually a locker room doesn't have a view to the entire internet, right? That's what it was.
We were a locker room that was in a public space, and that was the concern.
Yep. So those were good times. And before all of you go looking for those threads, most of them are gone and locked away. So unfortunately, you won't get to see them.
And the formatting broke in a lot of them, sadly, too.
Yeah. But there was a thread. The most infamous thread was called the "I'm drunk" thread. And that thread does not exist anymore. And you would just post there when you were drunk, which you can imagine what developed in that thread. It was, and we were all younger. We were all much younger.
Yeah.
What did you say? It was wholesome?
It was wholesome.
Wholesome. Yep. That's it. That's where I
gotta get a Southern word in there somewhere, right? Bless your heart.
All right. So,
all right, man.
We'll leave it there. Everybody, thank you very much for everything you do for the game. And Mac, thank you for everything that you do.
No, of course. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you, everybody. We absolutely love this community. Thank you.
That's This Week in Base Hit. See you next week.